The galaxy was vast, filled with stars that twinkled like diamonds scattered across a black velvet sky. Among these stars lay a planet known for its strange beauty and dangerous secrets. It was called Zoran 7, a world where alien species thrived and humans struggled to survive. The air on Zoran 7 shimmered with an eerie glow, making everything look otherworldly. Strange creatures roamed the land, some small and harmless, others massive and deadly, but none were more feared than the dragons of Zoran 7. These dragons were not ordinary beasts. They were enormous, their scales glinting like polished metal under the dim light of the twin suns. Their eyes burned with intelligence, and their wings stretched wide enough to block out the horizon when they flew. The deadliest of them all was Kale. He was no ordinary dragon, but a creature born of legends. His roar could shake mountains, and his claws could tear through steel as if it were paper. To most beings in the galaxy, Kyle was a monster, a symbol of destruction and chaos. But to one little girl, he would become something far greater. Hannah lived in a small human settlement on the edge of Zoran 7's wilderness. She was only 10 years old, with bright eyes full of curiosity and a heart unafraid of danger. Her hair was dark like midnight, tied back into a messy braid that bounced as she ran. Hannah loved exploring the wild lands outside the settlement, despite her parents' warnings. "Stay away from the wilderness," they always said. "It's too dangerous." But Hannah couldn't resist the pull of adventure. And there was so much to see beyond the walls of the settlement, so many mysteries waiting to be uncovered. One day, while wandering farther than ever before, Hannah stumbled upon something extraordinary. In a clearing surrounded by tall, glowing trees, she saw a figure lying motionless on the ground. At first glance, it looked like a giant reptile, its body covered in shimmering silver scales. Its wings were folded against its sides, and its tail stretched out behind it like a fallen bridge. Hannah froze, her breath catching in her throat. She had heard stories about the dragons of Zoran 7, but she never imagined she'd see one up close. As she crept closer, her footsteps soft against the mossy ground, she realized the dragon wasn't moving. Its chest rose and fell slowly, but there was a deep gash along its side, oozing a strange blue liquid. And Hannah's heart ached at the sight. For a moment, fear gripped her. What if it woke up? What if it attacked her? But then she noticed how vulnerable it looked, how weak its breathing seemed. This wasn't the mighty beast from the stories. It was hurt, maybe even dying. Hannah knelt beside the dragon, her hands trembling slightly. She reached out, hesitating for just a second before gently touching its scaly skin. It was warm, almost hot to the touch. The dragon didn't move, but Hannah could feel its life force pulsing beneath her fingers. Something inside her stirred, a mix of pity and determination. She couldn't leave it here to die, even though it was a dragon, even though everyone said they were monsters. She knew she had to help. She rummaged through her bag, pulling out a water flask and a piece of cloth she carried for emergencies. Carefully, she poured some water onto the cloth and dabbed at the wound. The blue liquid smeared across the fabric, but the bleeding didn't stop. Hannah bit her lip, thinking hard. She remembered seeing medicinal plants during her explorations. If she hurried, she might find something useful. Leaving the dragon for a few moments, Hannah dashed into the forest, her eyes scanning the undergrowth. She spotted a cluster of purple leaves growing near a stream and quickly gathered as many as she could carry. Back at the clearing, she crushed the leaves between two stones until they formed a paste. With steady hands, she applied the paste to the dragon's wound, hoping it would work. Time passed slowly as Hannah stayed by the dragon's side. She talked to it softly, telling it stories about her life in the settlement. "My name is Hannah," she whispered. "I'm not scared of you. You don't have to be scared either." Whether the dragon understood her or not, she didn't know, but somehow her voice seemed to calm the tension in the air. Hours later, just as the twin suns began to set, the dragon stirred. Its golden eyes opened slowly, fixing on Hana with a gaze that seemed to pierce straight through her soul. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then, with a low growl, the dragon tried to rise, but its injured side made it falter. Hana placed a hand on its neck, her touch surprisingly gentle for someone so small. "It's okay," she said softly. "You're safe now." The dragon, Kale, watched her with an expression that was unreadable yet undeniably intelligent. And in that moment, a bond began to form, one that would change the fate of both humans and aliens forever. Not the morning light filtered through the glowing trees, casting soft shadows over the clearing where Hana sat beside Kyle. The dragon's massive body still lay motionless, though his breathing had grown steadier overnight. Hana hadn't left his side, even when the cold night air made her shiver. She wrapped herself in a thin blanket she'd brought from home, determined to stay until Kale was strong enough to move. Her heart ached for him, not just because he was injured, but because she sensed how alone he must feel. As the suns rose higher, Kyle stirred again, his golden eyes opening slowly. He turned his head slightly, fixing his gaze on Hana. There was no hostility in his expression, only curiosity, and perhaps a hint of gratitude. Hana smiled at him, her small face lighting up with warmth. "Good morning," she said softly, and her voice carrying a mix of excitement and nervousness. "I'm glad you're awake." Kyle didn't respond, at least not in words, but there was something in the way he looked at her that made Hana feel understood. She reached out hesitantly, placing her hand on his scaly neck. To her surprise, he didn't flinch or pull away. Instead, he let out a low rumble, almost like a purr. It was a sound so deep and resonant that it vibrated through the ground beneath them. Hana giggled, feeling a strange sense of joy bubbling inside her. For the first time since finding him, she truly believed he might survive. But their peaceful moment was interrupted by the distant hum of engines. Hana's smile faded as she turned toward the sound. A group of humans from the settlement was approaching, their vehicles kicking up clouds of dust. And she recognized some of them, farmers, hunters, and even a few guards. They were armed, their faces grim as they scanned the wilderness. Hana knew why they were here. News of her discovery must have spread, and now they had come to deal with the threat. "Stay here," she whispered to Kale, though she wasn't sure if he understood. Rising to her feet, she stepped forward to meet the group. As they drew closer, one of the men called out, "Hana, what are you doing out here? We told you this place is dangerous." "I know," Hana replied, her voice steady despite the fear building in her chest. "But I found something. Someone. He's hurt, and I've been taking care of him." The man frowned, clearly skeptical. "Taking care of what? One of those alien beasts? You should have run back to warn us instead of playing hero." "He's not a beast," Hana shot back, surprising even herself with her boldness. "He's different. He hasn't hurt me. He's just scared and in pain." Before the man could argue further, another voice spoke up. It belonged to an older woman named Yunji, who often helped tend to the sick and injured in the settlement. She stepped forward, her sharp eyes narrowing as she studied Hana. "Let's see what we're dealing with," she said firmly. "If it's as bad as you say, maybe we can help." Reluctantly, the group followed Hana back to the clearing. When they saw Kyle lying there, their reactions varied. Some gasped in awe at his sheer size and beauty, while others tightened their grips on their weapons, ready to attack. Kyle lifted his head slightly, and his golden eyes scanning the newcomers with wary intelligence. Hana quickly moved to stand between him and the group, her arms spread wide protectively. "No!" she shouted, her voice ringing out with surprising authority. "You can't hurt him! He's not dangerous!" One of the guards scoffed. "Not dangerous! That thing could crush us all in one swipe! We can't take any chances! He saved my life once, Hana lied, thinking fast. In truth, Kale had never attacked her, but she knew the others wouldn't believe her unless she gave them a reason to trust him. When I got lost in the forest, he protected me from other predators. He's not like the stories say. Her words caused a ripple of uncertainty among the group. They glanced at each other, unsure of what to do next. Yoonji stepped forward again, her expression thoughtful. Let's not jump to conclusions, she said calmly. If the child says he's harmless, then maybe we should give him a chance. Besides, look at him. He's wounded. If we kill him now, we'll be no better than the monsters we accuse him of being. Her argument seemed to sway the others, though not completely. The guards lowered their weapons but kept a close eye on Kyle. Meanwhile, Yoonji knelt beside him, examining his injury. She nodded approvingly at the makeshift treatment Hana had provided. You did good work, little one, she said with a faint smile. But we'll need proper supplies to heal him fully. Over the next few days, Hana stayed by Kyle's side as the settlement sent teams to gather medicinal herbs and tools. Word of the injured dragon spread quickly, drawing both fear and fascination from the community. As some people came to gawk at him, while others offered help, bringing food and water for Hana and even blankets to keep her warm during the nights. Despite the mixed reactions, Hana refused to leave Kale's side. She talked to him constantly, sharing stories about her life and asking questions about his, though she doubted he could answer. To her surprise, Kyle began responding in his own way. He would tilt his head when she asked a question, as if considering her words. Sometimes he would nudge her gently with his snout, making her laugh. It was as if he understood her, even if he couldn't speak. Their bond grew stronger with each passing day, and Hana started to believe that Kale wasn't just a dragon, he was a friend. But trouble was brewing beyond the settlement. But news of Kale's presence had reached the ears of the alien factions that controlled Zoran 7. These beings, known as the Veilons, were ruthless and power-hungry. They viewed dragons like Kale as weapons, tools to be used in their endless wars. When they learned that a human girl had befriended one of their most prized creatures, they were furious. A delegation of Veilons arrived at the settlement one evening, their sleek ships descending from the sky like dark birds. They wore armor that gleamed like polished obsidian, and their eyes glowed with an unnatural light. The leader of the group, a tall and imposing figure named Terran, demanded to see Kale immediately. The humans, intimidated by the aliens' presence, reluctantly led them to the clearing. Hana stood protectively in front of Kale, her tiny frame dwarfed by the towering Veilons. "And you can't take him," she said, her voice trembling but resolute. "He's hurt, and he needs time to heal." Terran sneered down at her, his tone dripping with disdain. "You think you can defy us, human? This creature belongs to us. He is a weapon, nothing more." "He's not a weapon!" Hana shouted, tears welling up in her eyes. "He's my friend!" For a moment everyone held their breath, waiting for Terran's reaction. But before he could respond, Kale let out a low growl, his golden eyes flashing with anger. The Veilons took a step back, startled by the sudden display of defiance. Even Terran seemed taken aback, though he quickly masked his surprise with a scowl. "This isn't over," he warned, turning to leave. "We'll be back for him." As the Veilons departed, the humans breathed a collective sigh of relief. But Hana knew the danger wasn't gone. It was only beginning. She looked up at Kyle, her heart pounding with determination. No matter what happened, she vowed to protect him, just as he had unknowingly protected her. Together, they would face whatever challenges lay ahead. The days that followed were tense. The Veilons' visit had cast a shadow over the settlement, leaving everyone on edge. Though they had left for now, their threat lingered like a storm cloud waiting to burst. Hana felt it most acutely. Every sound, every movement in the forest made her jump, wondering if the aliens had returned. but she refused to let fear take hold of her. Kale was still recovering, and she knew she had to stay strong, for him and for herself. Kyle's condition improved steadily thanks to Yoonji's care and Hana's constant attention. The deep gash on his side began to heal, though faint scars remained as reminders of the battle he had endured before meeting Hana. His strength returned bit by bit, and with it came moments of playfulness. Sometimes, when no one else was around, Kale would stretch out his massive wings and let Hana climb onto his back. She would laugh as he gently lowered himself to the ground, careful not to hurt her. These quiet moments filled her with joy, but they also reminded her of how fragile their bond was. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of orange and purple, Hana sat beside Kale in the clearing. The air was cool, and the forest was alive with the sounds of nocturnal creatures. Hana leaned against Kale's warm body, feeling safe despite the looming threat. "Shh, do you think they'll come back?" she asked softly, staring at the stars above. Kale didn't answer, but his golden eyes seemed to glimmer with understanding. He nudged her gently with his snout as if to reassure her. Hana smiled, though her heart still felt heavy. "I won't let them take you," she whispered. "I promise." Unbeknownst to Hana, the Veilons were already preparing for their next move. Taran, their leader, was furious about the humans' defiance. In his eyes, Kale was not just a dragon but a symbol of power, a weapon to be wielded in their wars. The thought of a mere human girl standing in his way was unacceptable. He ordered his troops to gather reinforcements and prepare an assault on the settlement. They would retrieve Kale by force if necessary, even if it meant wiping out the humans who dared to protect him. Back at the settlement, rumors of the impending attack spread quickly. Fear gripped the community, and arguments broke out among the people. Some wanted to fight back, believing that surrendering Kale would only invite further aggression from the Veilons. Others argued that resisting was suicide. They were outnumbered and outmatched. Amid the chaos, Hana remained resolute. She approached the elders of the settlement, her small frame dwarfed by the weight of her determination. "We can't give up Kyle," she said firmly, her voice cutting through the noise. "He's not just a dragon, he's my friend. If we hand him over, we're no better than the Veilons." Her words stirred something in the crowd. Many of them had seen how Kale responded to Hana, how gentle he was despite his fearsome appearance. Even those who had initially doubted him began to reconsider. One of the elders, a grizzled man named June, stepped forward. "What do you suggest we do, child?" he asked, his tone gruff but not unkind. Hana hesitated for a moment, then spoke with quiet confidence. "We need to show the Veilons that we're not afraid. If they see how much Kyle means to us, maybe they'll leave us alone." June frowned, clearly skeptical. "And if they don't? What then?" "Then we fight," Hana replied simply. Her answer stunned the crowd into silence. No one expected such boldness from someone so young, but there was no mistaking the resolve in her voice. The decision was made. The settlement would stand its ground, even if it meant risking everything. Preparations began immediately. Barricades were erected around the perimeter, weapons were distributed, and then lookout posts were set up to monitor the surrounding area. Hana stayed close to Kale, helping wherever she could. She knew the coming battle would be dangerous, but she refused to let fear paralyze her. Days turned into nights, and the tension grew unbearable. Then, one fateful morning, the alarm sounded. A scout reported seeing a fleet of Veilon ships descending toward the settlement. Panic erupted, but Hana remained calm. She ran to the clearing where Kale lay and grabbed his snout, looking him straight in the eye. "It's time," she said, her voice steady despite the tremor in her hands. "You have to trust me." Kale let out a low growl, his golden eyes glowing with fierce determination. He rose to his full height, towering over the trees. For the first time since his injury, he stretched his wings wide, casting a shadow over the entire clearing. Hana climbed onto his back, her heart pounding as she clung to his scales. Together, they soared into the sky, heading straight for the advancing Veilon forces. The sight of Kale flying overhead sent shockwaves through both the humans and the aliens. The Veilons froze, their weapons trained on the massive dragon. Terran barked orders, demanding that his troops fire, but his voice was drowned out by the roar that erupted from Kyle's throat. It was a sound unlike anything anyone had ever heard, deep, resonant, and filled with raw power. The very ground shook beneath their feet. Hana held on tightly as Kale dove toward the Veilon ships, his claws slashing through the air. The aliens scrambled to defend themselves, but their weapons seemed useless against his impenetrable scales. With each swipe of his tail, he sent their ships spiraling out of control. The humans watched in awe as Kale single-handedly dismantled the enemy fleet, his movements precise and calculated. But it wasn't just Kale fighting. Inspired by his bravery, the settlers rallied together, using whatever weapons they had to fend off the remaining Veilon forces. Arrows flew, makeshift explosives detonated, and shouts of defiance echoed across the battlefield. For the first time, the humans fought not just for survival, but for something greater, their freedom and their right to protect what mattered most. As the battle raged on, Hana noticed Terran attempting to flee in a small escape pod. Without hesitation, she urged Kyle to pursue him. The dragon responded instantly, his wings beating furiously as he closed the distance. Just as Terran's pod lifted off the ground, Kale swooped down, grabbing it in his massive jaws. The pod crumpled under the pressure, forcing Terran to abandon it and retreat on foot. When the dust finally settled, the Veilons were gone. Their ships lay scattered across the landscape, smoking ruins testifying to their defeat. The settlers cheered, their voices ringing out in triumph. Hana slid off Kale's back, her legs trembling as she landed on the ground. Exhaustion washed over her, but she couldn't stop smiling. They had done it. They had won. Kyle lowered his head to nuzzle her, his golden eyes soft with affection. Hana wrapped her arms around his snout, tears streaming down her face. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you for trusting me." In that moment, something shifted, not just within the settlement, but across Zoran 7 itself. News of the humans' victory spread quickly, reaching even the farthest corners of the galaxy. The Veilons, once feared and untouchable, had been humbled by a girl and her dragon. And Kale, the legendary beast who had inspired terror for centuries, had become a symbol of hope and unity. Though the danger had passed for now, Hana knew this was only the beginning. The bond she shared with Kale had changed everything, and she was ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, together. The aftermath of the battle left the settlement buzzing with a mix of relief and disbelief. Never had the humans imagined they could stand against the Veilons, let alone drive them away. The victory was sweet, but it came at a cost. Broken ships littered the landscape, and the air still carried the faint smell of smoke. Some settlers nursed wounds, while others worked tirelessly to repair the damage done to their homes. Despite the exhaustion, there was an undeniable sense of pride in the air. For the first time, the humans felt like more than just survivors. They felt like warriors. Hana moved among them, her small frame carrying a quiet strength that inspired everyone around her. She checked on the injured, helped rebuild barricades, and offered words of encouragement to those who doubted whether they could truly move forward. But her heart always returned to Kyle. After the battle, he had retreated to the clearing where they had first met, his massive body resting under the glowing trees. Hana visited him often, sitting beside him and talking about everything and nothing. She told him about the settlers' plans for the future, about how they wanted to build stronger defenses and create alliances with other human communities. Kale listened silently. his golden eyes reflecting the light of the twin suns. But something was different about Kale now. He seemed restless, as if the battle had stirred something deep within him. Hana noticed it in the way he paced the clearing, his wings twitching as if yearning to take flight again. One evening, as she sat beside him, she finally asked the question that had been weighing on her mind. "What's wrong, Kale? You seem troubled." Kale turned his head to look at her, his expression unreadable yet filled with emotion. Then, in a moment that took Hana's breath away, he leaned down and pressed his snout gently against her forehead. It was a gesture of affection, but also one of farewell. Hana's heart sank as realization dawned on her. "You're leaving, aren't you?" she whispered, tears welling up in her eyes. Kyle didn't respond directly, but his actions spoke louder than words. He spread his massive wings, casting a shadow over the clearing. The wind picked up as he prepared to take off, and Hana stood frozen, torn between wanting to stop him and knowing she couldn't. "Will I ever see you again?" she asked, her voice trembling. For a moment, Kyle hesitated. Then, with a low rumble that vibrated through the ground, he lowered his head and nudged her gently. It wasn't a promise, but it was enough to give Hana hope. With one final glance at her, he launched himself into the sky, his wings cutting through the clouds as he soared higher and higher until he disappeared from sight. Hana fell to her knees, but tears streaming down her face. She felt a profound emptiness, as if a piece of her soul had been torn away. But even in her grief, she knew Kale's departure was necessary. He was a creature of the galaxy, not meant to be confined to one place or one person. Still, the thought of never seeing him again was almost too much to bear. Days turned into weeks, and life in the settlement slowly returned to normal. The people worked together to strengthen their defenses, ensuring they would never be caught off guard again. They also began reaching out to other human communities, sharing the story of their victory and forming alliances. Hana played a key role in these efforts, her bravery during the battle earning her respect and admiration from everyone. Yet, despite her outward confidence, she carried a quiet sadness within her. Every night, she stared at the stars, hoping to catch a glimpse of Kale's shimmering form flying across the sky. Meanwhile, news of the battle continued to spread throughout the galaxy. The Veilon's defeat had sent shockwaves through the alien factions, many of whom had long feared their dominance. Whispers of a human girl and her dragon ally began to circulate, sparking both curiosity and unease. Some viewed the story as a legend, a tale too fantastical to be true. Others saw it as a warning, a sign that the balance of power in the galaxy was shifting. Among those intrigued by the story was a group of aliens known as the Lyran. Unlike the Veilons, the Lyran were peaceful beings, their culture built on diplomacy and cooperation. They had watched the rise of the Veilons with growing concern, fearing the chaos their aggression would bring. When they heard about Kyle and Hana, they saw an opportunity to forge a new path for the galaxy, one based on understanding rather than fear. A delegation of Lyran arrived at the settlement one day, their sleek ships descending gracefully from the sky. They looked nothing like the Veilons, their bodies slender and covered in iridescent scales that shimmered like rainbows. Their leader, a wise and gentle being named Vera, approached the humans with open hands, signaling peace. "We mean no harm," she said in a voice that was soft, yet commanding. "We have come to learn from you." The settlers were wary at first, unsure of what to make of these newcomers, but Hana stepped forward, her courage outweighing her caution. "Why are you here?" she asked bluntly, her tone firm but not unkind. Vera smiled, her eyes twinkling with warmth. "We've heard about your victory, the bond between you and the dragon known as Kale. It has given us hope that even the fiercest enemies can find common ground." We wish to understand how you achieved such unity." Hana hesitated, unsure of how to explain something she barely understood herself. "It wasn't just me," she said finally. "Kale trusted me because I trusted him first. That's all it was." Vera nodded thoughtfully. "Trust is a powerful thing. Perhaps it is the key to bringing peace to this galaxy." Over the next few days, the Lyran stayed in the settlement, learning about the humans' way of life and sharing their own knowledge in return. They taught the settlers advanced farming techniques, showed them how to harness energy from the twin suns, and even introduced them to medicines that could heal wounds faster. In exchange, the humans shared stories of their struggles and triumphs, painting a picture of resilience and determination. Hana spent much of her time with Vera, asking questions about the galaxy beyond Zoran 7. She learned about distant planets, strange creatures, and civilizations that thrived on cooperation rather than conflict. It opened her eyes to possibilities she had never imagined, filling her with a renewed sense of purpose. "Maybe Kale was right to leave," she said one evening, as she and Vera sat beneath the stars. "If we want to change the galaxy, we can't stay hidden here forever." Vera placed a gentle hand on Hana's shoulder. "You've already started changing it, child. Your bond with Kale proved that even the most unlikely friendships can inspire greatness." As the days passed, the Lyran prepared to depart, and promising to keep in touch and continue working toward peace. Before they left, Vera gave Hana a small gift, a crystal that glowed softly in the dark. "This will guide you when the time comes," she said cryptically. "Trust your instincts, and you'll know what to do." With the Lyran gone, the settlement returned to its routines, but Hana felt a shift within herself. She no longer saw Zoran 7 as just a place to survive. She saw it as a stepping stone to something greater. Her thoughts often drifted to Kale, wondering where he was and what he was doing. She missed him deeply, but she also felt a growing sense of responsibility, to honor the bond they had shared by continuing to fight for peace. One night, as she lay beneath the stars, clutching the glowing crystal, she felt a sudden warmth in her chest. It was faint at first, almost like a whisper, but it grew stronger until it filled her entire being. She sat up, her heart racing, and looked toward the horizon. There, in the distance, she saw a familiar shape silhouetted against the moonlight. It was Kale. He landed softly in the clearing, his golden eyes meeting hers with a mixture of joy and sorrow. Hana ran to him, throwing her arms around his neck as tears streamed down her face. "I thought I'd never see you again," she choked out. Kale let out a low rumble, nuzzling her gently. Then, with a flick of his tail, he gestured toward the sky. Hana followed his gaze, her breath catching in her throat. Dozens of dragons like him were flying overhead, their scales glinting like stars. They circled the settlement, their movements graceful and deliberate. "They've come to help," Hana realized aloud, her voice filled with awe. "They've come because of you." Kyle nodded, his expression proud yet humble. Together they had sparked a change, not just in the settlement but across the galaxy, and now with the dragons by their side, the humans were ready to take the next step toward a brighter future. The arrival of the dragons changed everything. Their presence filled the skies above the settlement, casting shimmering shadows over the land. The humans watched in awe as these majestic creatures soared gracefully, their movements synchronized like a well-rehearsed dance. Kyle led them, his massive form glowing under the light of the twin suns. He had returned not just to reunite with Hana, but to bring hope, a sign that the bond between humans and dragons could reshape the galaxy. Hana stood in the clearing, her heart swelling with emotion. She hadn't realized how much she missed Kale until now, and seeing him surrounded by others of his kind made her feel both small and significant at the same time. These dragons weren't just beasts. They were intelligent beings capable of understanding, of forming connections. And somehow, Through her friendship with Kyle, she had become a bridge between two worlds. Kyle lowered himself to the ground, his golden eyes meeting Hana's with a look of quiet pride. She stepped forward, placing a hand on his snout. "Thank you for coming back," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "But why are they here?" Kyle didn't answer directly, but his actions spoke volumes. With a low rumble, he gestured toward the horizon where the remnants of Vaylon's ships still lay scattered across the landscape. And it was a reminder that while the battle had been won, the war for peace was far from over. The dragons had come to stand alongside the humans to protect them from any further threats, and perhaps to teach others that unity was stronger than fear. Word of the dragons' alliance spread quickly throughout the galaxy. News of their arrival reached even the most distant corners, sparking reactions ranging from curiosity to outright panic. The Vaylons, who had once ruled through intimidation and force, found themselves losing influence. Other alien factions began questioning their methods, wondering if there might be another way to coexist without bloodshed. For the first time in centuries, the balance of power in the galaxy shifted, not because of weapons or armies, but because of trust and cooperation. In the weeks that followed, life in the settlement transformed. The humans worked closely with the dragons, learning how to communicate with them and understand their ways. Kyle acted as a guide, teaching Hana and others how to interpret the subtle gestures and sounds that conveyed meaning. In return, the humans shared their knowledge of survival, showing the dragons how they adapted to the harsh environment of Zoran 7. It was a partnership built on mutual respect, one that grew stronger with each passing day. But it wasn't just about practical lessons. The bond between humans and dragons inspired something deeper, a sense of belonging. The settlers no longer saw themselves as outsiders struggling to survive. They saw themselves as part of something greater. They began referring to the dragons as guardians, protectors of their shared home. And even those who had once feared the creatures now greeted them with smiles, offering food and gratitude for their presence. Hana became the heart of this new community. Her connection with Kale served as a model for others, proving that differences could be overcome with patience and kindness. She spent her days helping people adapt to their new reality, whether it was teaching children how to approach the dragons safely or assisting farmers in using dragon scales to create stronger tools. At night, she would sit beneath the stars with Kale, talking about the future and all the possibilities it held. One evening, as the twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in shades of gold and crimson, Vera and her Lyran delegation returned. Their sleek ships descended gently into the clearing, bringing with them an air of excitement. Vera stepped out, her iridescent scales glowing softly in the fading light. "We've brought news," she said, her voice carrying a note of triumph. "Your story has inspired others, human and alien alike. There are movements happening across the galaxy, calling for change." Hana's eyes widened in surprise. "What kind of change?" "Peace talks," Vera replied with a smile. "Factions that once fought against each other are coming together to discuss alliances. They've seen what you've achieved here and want to follow your example." Hana glanced at Kale, who let out a low growl of approval. She felt a surge of pride mixed with humility. None of this would have been possible without the bond they had formed. "It wasn't just us," she said quietly. "It was everyone working together." Vera nodded. "That's exactly the message we're spreading. A unity isn't about erasing differences. It's about embracing them and finding strength in diversity." As the days passed, representatives from various alien species began arriving at the settlement. Some came cautiously, unsure of how they would be received. Others arrived openly, eager to learn from the humans and dragons. The clearing became a meeting place, a neutral ground where ideas were exchanged and friendships were forged. Hana played a key role in these gatherings, serving as a mediator between species. Her ability to connect with Kale and the other dragons earned her respect, while her courage and compassion won her allies. Through it all, Kale remained by Hana's side, a constant source of support and guidance. Together, they showed the galaxy that even the most unlikely bonds could inspire greatness. The image of a human girl standing beside a dragon became a symbol of hope, appearing in stories and songs across countless worlds. Years passed, and the settlement grew into a thriving community. New buildings rose from the ground, blending seamlessly with the natural beauty of Zoran 7. The humans and dragons lived side by side, their lives intertwined in ways no one could have imagined. Children grew up learning about the importance of trust and cooperation, carrying those lessons into the wider galaxy. Hana, now older and wiser, continued to serve as a leader, though she never sought the title. Her legacy wasn't defined by power or authority, but by the connections she had nurtured. She often thought back to the day she first met Kale, remembering the fear and uncertainty she had felt. Those feelings seemed so distant now, and replaced by a deep sense of fulfillment. One evening, as she sat with Kale beneath the stars, she turned to him with a smile. "Do you think we'll always be remembered?" Kale tilted his head, his golden eyes reflecting the light of the twin moons. Then, with a soft rumble, he nudged her gently. It was his way of saying yes, not just to her question, but to everything they had achieved together. And as the galaxy looked toward a brighter future, Hana knew that their story would endure, a testament to the power of love, trust, and the courage to reach across divides.